Why do the most reliable people at work end up stuck in the same position year after year, watching colleagues who seem less capable sail past them into promotions and raises? If you've ever wondered why your dedication, your consistency, your quiet professionalism seems to go completely unrewarded, this video is going to change the way you see your entire career. Because the problem isn't that you're not good enough. The problem is that you might be too good at staying invisible. Let's start with something uncomfortable. Think about the most hard-working person you know at your job, the one who never misses a deadline, the one everyone relies on, the one who fixes things without being asked. Now ask yourself honestly, when did that person last get promoted? When did they last get a meaningful raise? Chances are, they're still in roughly the same position they were 2 or 3 years ago. And here's the devastating irony of it all. That reliability, that competence, that quiet excellence, it's actually working against them. Here's what's really happening underneath the surface of most organizations. When you become exceptionally good at your current role, you transform into something very specific in the eyes of management. You become infrastructure. You're not seen as someone with upward potential. You're seen as the load-bearing wall that keeps everything else standing. And nobody tears down a load-bearing wall. Nobody moves a load-bearing wall. They just keep piling more weight on it. Your manager knows, consciously or unconsciously, that promoting you creates a serious problem. They have to find someone to replace you. That replacement process is uncertain, time-consuming, and risky. If the replacement struggles, that reflects poorly on your manager. If the handoff goes badly, projects slip, clients get upset, things break. Keeping you exactly where you are is simply the path of least resistance. It's not cruelty. It's just the way organizations protect themselves from disruption. Meanwhile, from your perspective, everything feels completely backwards. You're hitting every target. You're solving problems before they become emergencies. You're making everyone's lives easier. You're getting positive feedback in every review. And yet somehow, despite all of that, nothing changes. Your title stays the same. Your salary barely budges. And someone else gets the opportunity you've been waiting for. Now here's where it gets even more frustrating. Over time, as you master your current role, you stop developing the skills you'd actually need to move forward. You've optimized. You know the systems. You know the shortcuts. You can do the job almost on autopilot. That efficiency feels like mastery, but mastery of your current role is completely different from readiness for the next one. The skills required at the next level involve strategy, managing complexity, making decisions with incomplete information, leading other people through uncertainty. Those are entirely different muscles, and you haven't been building them because your current job doesn't require them. So a year goes by, 2 years go by. You get faster and more efficient at everything your current role demands. But you're not becoming more ready for what comes next. You're just becoming more indispensable where you already are. And there's a psychological dimension to this that makes everything worse. The longer you stay in a role, the more completely an organization begins to define you by that role. It's not a formal process. It happens in passing comments, in the way your name comes up in meetings, in the mental shorthand people use to describe you. You become the person who handles this specific thing. That label calcifies over time, and once people in an organization have mentally filed you under a particular category, changing their minds requires an enormous amount of evidence and effort that most people never realize they need to produce. Being the go-to person feels like recognition at first, and it genuinely is, initially. But go-to has a hidden expiration date. It eventually transforms into can't imagine them doing anything else. The very depth of your expertise becomes the ceiling that keeps you from being considered for anything beyond it. Here's another piece of this that almost nobody talks about. Silence gets misread as contentment. If you're keeping your head down, delivering excellent work, and not actively communicating what you want, the organization assumes you're happy exactly where you are. Why would they invest in moving you if they believe you're already satisfied? They're not reading your mind. They're reading the signals you're sending. and quiet, reliable performance sends a very clear signal that says everything is fine here, no action needed. Promotion decisions don't primarily happen during formal performance reviews. They happen in informal conversations, in succession planning discussions, in the offhand remarks people make when a new role opens up and someone asks who comes to mind. Those conversations run on narrative, not data. They're not pulling up spreadsheets of your task completion rates. They're asking a simple question: who do we picture in that role? And if your name doesn't come up naturally in those conversations, your performance metrics are essentially irrelevant to the decision. The people who actually move up in organizations are often not the highest performers in their current role. They're the people who made their ambitions visible. They talked about where they wanted to go. They built relationships with people outside their immediate team. They created a narrative about themselves that went beyond what they were currently delivering. They didn't just do exceptional work. They made sure the right people understood the full scope of what they were contributing and where they were headed. There's also something crucial about perceived risk. When someone quietly signals that they're building towards something bigger, with or without the organization's cooperation, it changes the dynamic entirely. Suddenly, there's a sense of urgency. Suddenly, leadership starts thinking about that person differently, not because they changed their performance, but because now there's a real possibility of losing them. Organizations respond to what they perceive as immediate risks far more than they respond to steady, reliable contributions that have been happening quietly in the background. Think about how unfair this sounds. And in some ways, it genuinely is unfair. You did exactly what was asked of you. You were dependable, professional, hardworking. Nobody told you there were different rules operating above the surface level. Nobody sat you down and explained that the game requires active participation in your own visibility, not just consistent execution of your responsibilities. But that's precisely the gap. Competence is the entry requirement. It's the minimum standard for staying in the game. It is not by itself the strategy for advancing. The strategy begins after you've established competence, and it involves entirely different actions than just doing your job well. So what does this actually mean for you right now, practically speaking? The first thing to understand is that you have to start making your goals explicit and visible, not in a demanding or aggressive way, but clearly and consistently. Your manager should know what you're working toward. The people above your manager should have some awareness of your ambitions. If you've never had a direct conversation about what you want your career to look like in 2 or 3 years, have that conversation now. Don't assume anyone is tracking your potential on your behalf. Second, start building relationships with people outside your immediate reporting chain. The decisions that affect your career are often made by people who barely know you. That needs to change. Find genuine reasons to work with people across different parts of the organization. Contribute to discussions where your thinking becomes visible to leaders beyond your own team. Third, and this one is counterintuitive, you need to intentionally become slightly less perfect at your current role so you can start developing the skills required for the next one. This doesn't mean slacking. It means rebalancing where you invest your time and energy. If you spend every available hour optimizing your current job, you have no capacity left to stretch toward new capabilities. You have to deliberately create space for that growth. Fourth, document your contributions and communicate them proactively. Not in an annoying, self-promotional way, but systematically and professionally. People who make decisions about your career should regularly hear about what you're working on, what problems you've solved, and what impact your work has created. Don't wait for a performance review to tell that story. Tell it consistently throughout the year. There's also something worth saying about urgency. Organizations move on problems that feel urgent. If your manager has no reason to believe you might leave, no sense that opportunities might pull you in a different direction, there's very little urgency attached to your development or advancement. You don't need to make threats or ultimatums, but you do need to be honest about your growth goals in a way that makes it clear you're going to keep moving forward, whether it happens here or somewhere else. The hard reality is that many people realize all of this too late. They spend years building deep expertise in a role that doesn't lead anywhere, developing a reputation for reliability that works against their advancement, staying invisible in all the conversations that actually matter, and waiting for their performance to speak for itself when performance alone has never been what drives promotion decisions in most organizations. Competence is not a strategy, it's the foundation. What you build on that foundation determines everything. The quiet workers who never get raises aren't failing because they're not skilled enough. They're failing because they're playing by rules that don't apply at the level they're trying to reach. They're optimizing for execution when the next level rewards visibility, relationship building, and demonstrated readiness for responsibilities they haven't officially been given yet. You can keep your head down. You can keep being the most reliable person in the room, and you might keep that job for a very long time. But reliability and invisibility together are a recipe for staying exactly where you are, and staying exactly where you are year after year, while everything around you inflates and grows, is its own kind of career failure. A quiet one, a slow one, but a real one. The workers who get raises aren't always the best workers. They're the ones who made sure being excellent was only the beginning of what they brought to the table.